Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so today we're looking at something pretty impressive. A gardener hitting their 700th reflective post in a personal log.
Yeah, and what's really remarkable, the reason we're digging into it, is the speed. Post 600 to 700? Apparently just 3 months.
Exactly.
Ah.
That's not just gardening, that's like hyper learning mode, right? So this isn't just about plants for us, not at all. We're diving into the source. It's titled Notes on Gardening, Part 700. The journey so far until 700th post. Our goal is to kind of pull out the key methods, the insights that made this burst of progress possible. Yeah, think of this deep dive as, well, a look at really effective process improvement. How do they crack the code in those 100 posts? Let's unpack it. Okay, so the reflection itself kicks off, highlighting maybe the biggest win during this phase. Finally getting propagation right. Propagation, always tricky.
Right, and they mentioned specifically getting a much higher success rate with species they'd struggled with before.
Okay, so which ones are we talking about? The source names them, right?
It does. Coleus, zinnia, and marigold cuttings. Plants that suddenly went from maybe hit or miss to reliably successful.
And the aha moment wasn't some fancy new gadget.
Nope. The core insight, the real nugget, was understanding and then actually using the specific microclimate needs of each cutting. They stopped treating the garden like one big zone.
Microclimate. Okay, that can sound a bit abstract. How did they actually do that? What was the practical technique?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. It wasn't about tech. It was about observation and using existing areas in a clever way. For the marigold and coleus cuttings, get this, they used soggy soil in shaded areas.
Wait, soggy soil. Really? Isn't that like rule number one, not to do with cuttings, fear of rot and all that?
Exactly. It seems totally counterintuitive, but that detailed soggy soil shaded area, that's the key instruction they figured out.
So the thinking was?
The thinking was that for those specific cuttings, the absolute priority wasn't perfect drainage, it was maintaining super high, constant, localized humidity. And that soggy shaded spot delivered that perfectly.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't about the whole plant's long-term needs, but the immediate critical need of the cutting itself to root.
Precisely. It's a great example of how mastery often comes down to finding that one, maybe non-obvious, specific condition that makes all the difference.
And once you nail that variable, you can stop guessing and start scaling, which probably explains the speed boost. Definitely. And that leads us right into the next big area covered in the notes. Dealing with the day-to-day realities, the threats. Let's talk pests and maintenance. Ah, yes, the less glamorous side. Even with perfect microclimates, you still have things like whiteflies trying to ruin the party. The notes mention a strategy for them, especially on the Bonchi.
Yeah, the bonsai chili. And what comes through is a really clear two-step process. It wasn't just spray and pray.
Okay, lay it out for us. Step one.
Step one involved combining organic pesticides.
Okay.
Standard enough, right? Tackling the active pests.
But that often feels like whack-a-mole if you don't get the source. So step two must be the clincher. It is. Step two is the crucial mechanical part, physically washing the eggs from the underside of the leaves. Diligently. Right. Getting rid of the next generation before they hatch. That takes commitment.
It does. And if you think about it in process terms, it's that essential two-tiered strategy. The pesticides are the immediate response, the firefighting.
Okay.
But the washing, that's interrupting the cycle. It's the quality control, the preventative maintenance. You skip that manual step, you're just waiting for the next outbreak.
That makes sense. It's that extra level of thoroughness that ensures the gains elsewhere aren't just wiped out. Hard work, but necessary.
And speaking of making work easier, or at least more efficient, there was this really delightful bit in the notes about tools. Pure ingenuity.
Oh, the tool hacks. I loved this part. Finding better tools without spending a fortune.
Exactly. They discovered some common kitchen items were actually better for transplanting tiny seedlings than specialized garden tools.
Okay, spill the beans. What were they?
A cocktail fork and a cake slicer.
A cocktail fork. Seriously, how does that work better than, say, a small trowel or dipper?
Think about the precision. Those little two-pronged forks. They're perfect for gently teasing apart and lifting individual seedling root balls from a crowded tray. Minimal disturbance.
Ah, I see. Less root damage compared to scooping with something bulkier. You keep the delicate roots intact.
Exactly. Minimizes transplant shock, boosts survival rates, makes the whole process smoother, and the cake slicer.
Okay, I'm struggling to picture that one. Cake slicer for seedlings.
Well, imagine you've sown seeds quite densely in a flat. You get this mat of seedlings. The cake slicer, that flat, often slightly angled edge, lets you cleanly cut and lift out uniform blocks or strips of seedlings.
Ah, like portioning them out so you get consistent blocks ready for potting up.
Precisely. It standardizes the process. Super efficient if you're doing a lot of them, which, given their success rate, they probably were. It's that kind of resourceful thinking that clearly drove that rapid progress.
It really shows that innovation doesn't always mean buying something new. Sometimes the best tool is already in your drawer.
Absolutely. Now, before we look ahead, there's one more crucial lesson that got reinforced during this period, something non-negotiable: safety.
Hmm?
Right. The notes mentioned gloves, didn't they?
Yes. Always wear gloves when handling cuttings. They specifically learned this, or perhaps relearned it the hard way, with marigold sap causing skin irritation. Ouch. Yeah, it's easy to forget that even common plants can have irritating sap. Good reminder to bake that into the process, especially if you're handling lots of cuttings. Definitely a critical piece of process hygiene. Okay, so if we zoom out on this 100-post period, they've mastered specific microclimates, they've got a solid two-step pest plan, they've hacked their tools for efficiency, they've built a pretty robust little system, which logically sets the stage for
This expansion.
Exactly. The reflection then pivots from looking back at the last 3 months to setting concrete goals for the next phase leading up to post 800. And the first priority, tackling the new bottleneck, infrastructure.
Ah,
Success creates new problems, so better organization, better workspace.
pretty much. The plan explicitly mentions setting up proper plant racks and a dedicated gardening workbench in different areas.
That makes total sense. If your propagation is booming and you're efficiently transplanting with cake slicers, you suddenly need more well-organized space to put everything.
Right. Racks mean better light exposure for more plants. A workbench streamlines the actual potting and cutting work they've optimized.
Yeah.
It's scaling up the physical support system to match the process improvements.
And it's not just about optimizing the current setup. They're also planning to bring in new challenges, new plants.
Oh yeah, they're not resting on their laurels. The plan is to acquire and start cultivating 3 quite different species.
Okay, which ones did they list?
First, the fragrant lark daisy. Second, the tricolor amaranth. And third, a shrub, Abutilon pictum.
Wow, okay. A daisy, a leafy annual, and a shrub. That's quite a diverse mix. Seems like they're deliberately testing their newfound skills.
I think so too. It's not just about adding pretty plants. Bringing in 3 species with likely very different needs, light, water, soil, simultaneously, that's a direct stress test on the microclimate master and the efficiency hacks they just developed.
If the system works for these newcomers, it really validates everything they learned between post 600 and 700.
Exactly. And underpinning all this expansion, they note that the core activity propagating from both seeds and cuttings will continue, obviously using all these refined techniques.
So the engine of learning, the documentation and experimentation, keeps running strong. The system they built allows them to add complexity without, hopefully, losing control.
That seems to be the plan. The robust documentation is key to tracking what works as things get more complex.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. For you listening, what are the big takeaways here, whether you manage projects, teams, or just your own learning?
Well, I think first, real mastery often comes from drilling down into specifics, finding your equivalent of that soggy soil in the shade insight. It's about precise environmental control. Second, effective maintenance, dealing with problems. It's rarely just one thing. It's often a 2-tiered approach. Deal with the immediate fire, but also address the root cause, even if it's manual work like washing leaves. And third, don't underestimate simple ingenuity. Sometimes the best efficiency gains come from looking at existing resources, like kitchen tools, in a new way. Resourcefulness counts.
This whole 700-post journey is really a fantastic template for how to learn rapidly and document it effectively. The value isn't just the gardening tips, it's the process of tracking actions and results.
Absolutely. Which brings us to a final thought, something to chew on.
Go on.
The gardener hit this accelerated phase, 600 to 700 in just 3 months.
Okay.
Fueled by these optimizations. They nailed efficiency.
Right. But now they're deliberately scaling up infrastructure racks, workbenches, and simultaneously throwing 3 very different, potentially demanding new species into the mix. Lark daisy, amaranth, Abutilon pictum. Okay, so the question for you to think about is, what happens when hyper-optimization meets a sudden, sharp increase in complexity and scale? Could the sheer logistical effort of managing that new diversity actually challenge or even negate some of the efficiencies they just fought so hard to gain?
The classic tension between getting really good at one thing and then trying to manage lots of different things. Does efficiency scale smoothly when diversity increases dramatically? Exactly.
Yeah.
Something to consider for any scaling project. What new, unexpected problems might emerge purely from the jump in complexity itself?
A great question to ponder. We'll have to wait and see what post 800 reveals. Thanks for diving in with us today.